Proof people. Proof people.
Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. So today we are going to
Proof
discuss
people.
a subject that's quite. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. So today we are going to discuss a That subject is that's quite quite. normalized Good nowadays, evening, and
Proof
that
people.
is
Proof
workplace
people.
harassment.
So today we are going to discuss a
That
subject
is
that's
quite
quite.
normalized. Before beginning this presentation, I would like to take a moment to introduce myself and our dear presenters that are here with us today in order to share their ideas. So my name is Nuha Abdelhaq and I'm a communication major. And after that, we have Miriam Jabran, who is a computer science major. And after we have Yusuf Shawi, who is a communication major. After that, we have Sohara, who is a computer science major. And last but not least, we have Iman Rahmani, who is a marketing student. So I would like to inform you first that a recorded version of this webinar will be available on YouTube. And of course, we would love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to leave your feedback or any question that you will have during this live project in the comment section down below. And our presenters will take the time to make sure to answer some of your inquiries by the end. So for those of you who just joining us last, I want to take a second to welcome you again. We will be going more in depth about work harassment, and to do so, we will be following this order of information to make sure we are covering all aspects of this subject. I will be kickstarting by a small introduction to the matter. Then we will cover in the following order types of workplace harassment, statistic of workplace harassment, anti-harassment policies, complaint procedure, preventions. So, what is harassment? Uh, Harassment in the workplace is illegal in two ways. It may include quid pro quo harassment, which happens when work choices or treatment are influenced by submission to a rejection of unwanted behavior, generally of a sexual character. For example, a supervisor will fire or deny a promotion to a subordinate for refusing to be sexually cooperative. Workplace harassment may also include offensive behavior based on one or more of the above mentioned protected groups that is so severe that it produces a hostile or offensive work environment or results in an unfavorable employment decision. So we will I want to give the floor to Miriam, who will talk about types of workplace harassment. Thank you, Miriam, for.
Okay, so hi everyone. Okay, so basically in this part, we will be discussing the different categories of harassment in the working environment. Okay, so we can count around the 10 types of workplace harassments. First, there is the discriminatory type of harassment. It mainly concerns harassment based on one's race, religion, disability, age, gender, or sexual orientation. Then there's the personal harassment. It is somewhat similar. It is when the harassment is personally based on the victim. It's a sort of bullying. Okay, so then we have the physical harassment. It refers to when violence is involved. It can be anything from physically attacking the person, threatening to do so, or intimidating by throwing objects. Okay, so then when the harasser is a higher up or simply someone with authority over the victim and their job, it is referred to as power harassment, and it is pretty common, unfortunately. Okay, so then we have the psychological harassment. It's mainly used by all types of harassers. One of the reasons why its frequency is its frequent is due to the fact that it is hard to report it because of the lack of evidence and its normalization in a lot of office cultures. Okay, so basically, psychological harassment it occurs when the harasser makes fun of the victim, belittles them, and puts them in a position of shame and embarrassment. Okay, so a new type of harassment is the online harassment. So now the internet and the social media constitute an important part in the workplace most of the time, especially with this context of this pandemic. Now, not a long time passed by before it was used as a harassment method. Okay, so online harassment or cyberbullying, as it is frequently referred to, it comes in a form of harassers sharing posts, messages, or spreading rumors, publicly or secretly, about the victim. Now, there is another type of harassment which is called retaliation harassment. It refers to a situation where the harasser attempts to intimidate the victim into not filing a complaint or trying to get away from the situation. It can also aim as making the victim's life a hell as revenge because they spoke up about the harassment or they complained about it to a higher authority. Now, it is one of the most severe harassments because it is often successful in intimidating the victim to not stand up for themselves and to just continue suffering at the hands of their harassers. Now, another type would be the sexual harassment. It's a severe type of harassment because, compared to other types of harassment, it creates a toxic environment for the victim almost immediately, compared to the other ones where it does it gradually. Now, from making unwanted sexual comments, sexual content, to inappropriately touching the victim, there are many ways that sexual harassment occurs. And harassers, they tend to use several other types of harassments, like power, physical, online, psychological, to harass their victims without any backlash. Now, a subset of the sexual harassment is the quid pro quo harassment. It basically refers to sexual favors given by the victim in return of job benefits. Now, this category, it counts as a harassment because it is used a lot of times as blackmailing, or it counts as part of power harassment. Now, the last but not least, the third party harassment, it usually points to harassment directed towards line workers like nurses or servers in restaurants. It can be conducted by customers, vendors, patients, but also by higher ups, bosses, managers. And it's basically anyone professionally interacting with the victim. Now, that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam, for this presentation. Now, I want to give the floor to Yusuf Shawi, who will talk about the statistics of workplace harassment.
Thank you, Nuha. So I'll be talking about statistics of workplace harassment, as Nuha said. Yes. So a study finds that 75% of workplace harassment victims experience retaliation when they speak up. So 79% of men do not report workplace sexual harassment, and 1.63% of women do not report workplace sexual harassment. 36% of women experience sexual harassment in the workplace. 81% of women and 43% of men experience experienced workplace harassment in general throughout their lives. 75% of sexual harassment cases in the workplace go unreported, which makes it 3 out of 4 cases that go unreported. 5.39% of employees aren't confident their issues will be addressed, and 46% fear retaliation from these reports.
Thank you, Yusuf, for giving us the current statistics. So now I will move on to Sohra Muzaffari, who will talk about anti-harassment policies, and complete procedure. Sora, you can talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Naha, for giving me the floor and giving me the chance today to talk about anti-harassment policies. As my colleagues already talked about how uh, they had talked about the definitions of the harassment and different types of them, and they also talked about how it affected people. So now I'm going to talk about the policies and complaint procedures that can help to minimize or decrease the harassment in workplace. Here are some tips to make anti-harassment policies for organizations or make their anti-harassment policies better. They should address different types of harassment. Like we don't have only sexual harassment, but there are harassments due to race, gender, color, or gender identity, and different types that people face harassment. And the other one is a complaint procedure that can reflect different needs and ways of resolving the issue. Yeah, you have to have a complaint procedure that you should define it or make your employees to know about it before when they wanna come to your organization. And you have to can you please go back to the previous slide, Noha? Okay, so and it should address different ways of resolving the issue. We have the harassment is a broad topic and it has different types of, and you can solve the issue with different ways. So the complaint procedure should have different ways of solving the issue. And the other one is safety and confidentiality of the victim should be assured. It can help the victim of harassment to feel confident or have the courage to come and to complain about the or address the harassment action. If the safety or confidentiality of the victims are not assured, it's obvious that no one's gonna uh, do a complaint procedure. Okay, can you go to next slide, Noha? And here is anti-harassment complaint procedure. It is better that there should be more than one designated person. As I said in the previous slide, that there should be more different ways of resolving the issue. For example, here the victim may be more comfortable with men or women, so you have to have more than one designated person. And there's a chance that the designated person be the harasser. So it's better to have more than one designated person so they can do a complaint to, or address the harassment to other people. And victims should have options. For example, some people may want to file a complaint informal or formal, and or they are more comfortable that others know about this or not. So here are two types. One is formal procedure and the other one is informal procedure. Now can you go to next slide? Okay, so if the victim choose a formal procedure, here are the actions that you, as a designated person, you need to take. First is that you need to interview the harasser and the victim separately. They should not be in the same place or at the same time. And the other one is you need to make sure whether the harassment took place or not. And if you got sure that the harassment took place, you need to uh, look for a remedy, like what the victim needs. For example, if there's harassment or it caused them to not get the position that they deserved, or it affected them psychologically, you need to uh, provide them with a counseling service. And the other one is a detailed report. You need to make a report with details, like how about the complaint procedure, what happened, how did you interview, the questions you asked from the victim and the harasser. And the other one is that you have to check if they are satisfied with the outcome. For example, the complaint procedure, did it help the victim to be in a more safe environment, or did it brought any change in the workplace? Did the harasser stop their action or not? And the other one is you have to have a record of all the actions. You need to report is like it's a different thing. It's more with detail, but the record is like you have to record, for example, the interview and this stuff. And the other one is it should be done confidentiality. Like you need to make sure that no third parties know about the complaint procedure, or about the victim who is the harasser, and this stuff. It should be more confidential and no one knows about it. And the other point is it needs to be done quickly. When someone or an employee come and they wanna file a complaint, you have to do it quickly, because there can be lots of outcomes. Like if you take more time, they may face very serious problem or serious thing that can have very worse outcome. So now we are going to move to informal procedure. So if the victim choose informal procedure, and the confidentiality is again a key point. It needs to be confidential. The second one is that the harasser should know about the complaint procedure. Another point is that you have to give an opportunity to the harasser to reply to the complaint. uh, And the other one is, again, you need to check the outcomes. Was it satisfying for the victim, or did the environment changed for the victim? Did the harasser stop the action? And you have to see what were the outcome of this action or this issue to the victim, and you need to give her or him the remedy. And thank you so much for watching and listening. And now I will give the floor to my next colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for this presentation. Now I want to give the floor to Iman, who will talk about, who will give us some preventions of workplace harassment. Thank you.
So thank you, Noha. Let's now talk about how to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. As my teammates already explained, sexual harassment is one of the most crucial things that may happen during work. Many people think that this subject only affects women. However, men also experience this kind of mistreatment. My part will include some of the preventions of being harassed in the workplace. So first thing, understand the definition of sexual harassment. The staff should understand what is meant by sexual harassment. For example, sexual harassment can be unwanted jokes, gestures, some offensive words, whether on clothing, or they can also be on the way someone is behaving. Body contact, like scratching a coworker's back, some repeated requests for dates that are often rejected, All of this can be unwanted by some coworkers, and that is fine because that is their rights. Another thing will be to ensure that the workplace has a sexual harassment policy. Organizations should publish a policy about sexual harassment. And of course, staff must be familiar with it to avoid any kind of misconduct in the workplace. Most importantly, report any concern immediately. So if anyone has felt that someone in your organization has behaved inappropriately, please raise your concern immediately. It is really important as well for a person to set his or her boundaries, like maybe notice if someone is getting too close or is making you feel uncomfortable in some sort of way. When that is happening, please talk to that person and tell them how you prefer to be treated. You can express that in a non-verbal way, like a look of pain or confusion, can sometimes be more powerful than talking. Individuals who are harassed at work must be able to fight back with the help of a strong internal system that are strong enough to result in serious punishments when misconduct happens. Thus, sexual harassment requires a long-term commitment, perseverance, and a willingness to change on many levels. There are things that all individuals may take to help create a better working environment for our employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman, for this presentation. I will now let's. I think we reached the end of our speaker speeches, and I hope that our viewers learned from this presentation. So before ending this webinar, we're gonna go ahead and move to the Q&A and let our speakers answer your questions. I'm waiting for you to write down your questions so we can answer them. Thank you. So I can see here that I have a question from Eliasmin bin Qabu, who says, my question is at the most effective solution to stop sexual harassment in the workplace. So I'm gonna let Miriam to answer this question.
Okay, so I'm having some sort of technical issues.
So I'm gonna give the floor to Iman while you're. I'm sorry, Iman, we can't hear you. Can you please unmute your mic?
Yes, sorry. So as I said, thank you, Yasmin Ben Qabou, for this question. So I think the most effective solution to stop sexual harassment is to be aware that the workplace has a zero tolerance regarding sexual harassment and to speak for yourself. Do not let people offend you. You have your values, and people should respect you, and you have the right to say no. I hope that this answer has responded to your question.
Thank you, Iman, for your answer. Now I'm gonna move to another question from Riem, who says, "Why do you think workplace harassment is so underreported?" And I think I'm gonna give the floor to Miriam, who's gonna answer to this question.
Okay, so workplace harassment is so underreported because of many reasons. One of the first and most obvious ones is that people are afraid to lose their job, which actually happens a lot. Okay, so when workplace harassment occurs, a lot of times it is from the higher ups, which means if you're working on a company and your manager harasses you, they have more power over you and they have more authority, and you complaining may result in you being fired, or you both being fired, because it involves a lot of a very like a hard and long process for the company to report that and deal with it. Instead, they just fire you and deal with the problem like that. Also, people are afraid of retaliation. For example, let's say that you complained actually and it worked, and the manager got fired or something like that, and they come back at you, whether it's outside of the office or in the office itself. And people are afraid of that because a lot of times it involves violence or publicly shaming or things like that, like making your life a living hell. Also, there's another one which involves shame in itself. People are afraid to say that they are a victim of harassment. Like they're ashamed to do that and to say it publicly and acknowledge that fact. And sometimes they're even in denial, which makes it hard for them to report it and actually deal with it. Okay, so I hope this answered your question.
Thank you, Miriam. So I have another question here from Wisal Rashidi, who says, apart from the solutions and preventions you suggested, what can people do to deal with harassment, whether as colleagues or relatives? So I think again, Iman will answer to this question. I think Iman has some problems, I guess. So I guess I'm gonna give the floor to Yusuf. Can you answer the question, please?
Thank you, Rifal, for asking this question. But because in a human society and in most places, you can't reduce you only the only thing you could do is reduce this number to be very tiny. And one of the things you can do that is make a very sustainable and a very good environment to pressure people who have these very horrible ideas. So you can pressure them and stop them from making these horrible decisions and harassing people. And and you can also prevent them from having these ideas by the environment, as I said, and to reduce the number even less is to improve the reporting activities. For example, you can make anonymous reportings of these available to the whole company. For example, by email or by emailing HR and making it anonymous to report this to HR or a task force that can help.
Thank you for your answer, Yusuf. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I have to end this webinar. I wanna thank you all for coming and participating, and please don't forget to report any kind of harassment, whether is it in a workplace or your university, anything. So thank you for coming, and have a good weekend. Thank you.